The night air was thick with soot and rain. Vharanor's skyline flickered in half-light, chimneys coughing flame, searchlights sweeping over bridges now claimed by plague, carts, and looters. The world Kael once swore to protect had become an open wound, and he was walking through its veins. He had not slept in days. His coat was scorched at the edges, his hand wrapped tight in bandages that did little to hide the faint, pulsing glow beneath. Every time he blinked, he saw flickers of the other him. Shadow fragments moving a heartbeat slower than he did, trailing in his periphery. Mira was safe. He hoped. He had left her in the hands of the healers, hidden far beyond the northern aqueducts, where the fog turned so thick that even the patrols refused to enter. But now even that hope felt brittle. The mark whispered that she was gone, that they had found her, that it was his fault. He tried to silence it. It only laughed. Kael's next target was Baron Odrin Vale, the last surviving member of the original council that orchestrated the coup. The Baron controlled the city's remaining foundries, and the watchguards, who still held any order over the streets Vale had turned his industrial quarter, once a symbol of progress, into a fortress. The chimneys spewed red flame, the walls patrolled by steam-powered sentinels that clanked and hissed as they walked, their armor bolted with sigils of loyalty. Kael crouched on a roof opposite the main gate, watching the lights sweep across the street. His breath steamed in the cold air. Below he could hear prisoners being dragged through the mud, accused of plague treason, their pleas muffled under the hiss of pistons. He closed his eyes, whispering to the mark, "Give me the path." The shadows around him stirred, shifting like liquid. When he opened his eyes again, faint trails of darkness stretched between the chimneys, a silent route only he could see. He blinked forward, landing soundlessly on a vent shaft, then scaled the iron wall, gripping the hot pipes that burned through his gloves. The pain was sharp, grounding, real. He reached the parapet just as a mechanical sentinel turned. Kael froze. The thing's eyes glowed crimson, scanning. He could feel its gears turning, its awareness brushing against his own. Then, with a flick of the wrist, Kael extended his mark. The air shimmered, and a ripple of distortion bent the machine's perception. It turned away. He moved. Inside the foundry, the heat was suffocating. Molten metal poured into vats, steam rising in golden columns. Chains hung from the ceiling, clinking softly. The workers here were little more than shadows, hunched figures in tattered uniforms, coughing as they shoveled coal into the furnaces. Kael moved among them unseen, his cloak soaking with sweat and grime. He passed broken murals of the Empress. The paint scraped off, replaced with the sigil of the Republic's fist. Every few steps, he heard whispers, his own voice echoing from somewhere behind him. They deserve this. You could free them all. Burn it down. He tried to block it out, but the mark pulsed hotter each time he resisted. The Baron's private guards were stationed near the smelting hall, where the largest of the forges burned bright enough to blind. Kael crept across a beam, high above the molten pool. Below, 2 guards argued near a crank winch that controlled the ventilation shaft. "Orders from the Baron himself," one said. "Seal the gates." no one in or out till dawn. And what about the prisoners? They're to be processed. Kael's jaw tightened. Processed meant fed into the ether machines. The Baron's twisted way of harvesting energy from the living. A loose bolt clattered under Kael's boot. The guards froze. One looked up. Kael blinked forward before they could shout, appearing behind them in a crack of shadow. His blade slipped through the first guard's neck cleanly. The second swung his rifle, shouting. Kael ducked under it, drove his elbow into the man's chest, then kicked him into the molten pit below. The man's scream echoed up through the smoke, sharp and brief. For a moment, Kael stood still, eyes closed, trying to calm his breathing. His hands trembled. He had meant to knock the man unconscious, not kill him. The mark throbbed in approval. Kael reached the top of the main forge tower. The heat was unbearable now, sweat streaking down his face. At the far end of the catwalk stood Baron Vale, tall, gaunt, wearing an exoskeletal brace of polished brass and gold. His lungs rasped through the tubes that fed from his chest to a boiler behind him. "So the Phantom comes for me at last," Vale said, his voice distorted by the respirator. "You think you fight corruption, Kael, but you're its finest creation." Kael's grip tightened on his sword. "You killed her. You all did." "Did we?" Vale's laugh was thin, metallic. "Or did you? You, the Empress's pet, the one they all trusted? I saw the reports. Your fingerprints, your blade." Kael lunged before he could finish. The Baron twisted aside, faster than expected. His exosuit hissed and slammed its arm into Kael's ribs, knocking him sideways. The metal grated, the pain blooming white-hot. Kael rolled, gasping, his vision swimming. Vale advanced, the exosuit's gears whining. "You were meant to be our weapon, but you broke too soon." Kael forced himself up, left hand pressed to his side. He raised his right. The mark blazed. Shadows burst outward, forming a dozen after-images, all circling the Baron like wolves. Vale struck one. It vanished in smoke. Another slashed at his shoulder, tearing through brass plating. Sparks flew. "Witchcraft!" Vale spat, swinging wildly. "You're no man. You're his puppet." Kael's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Maybe I am." The mark flared again. A surge of black fire that twisted through the air and struck the exosuit's core. It exploded in a blast of molten brass and shrapnel. Vale screamed as he was flung backward into the furnace. Kael staggered, clutching his ribs, blood running down his side. The pain grounded him for a heartbeat, until he realized he was laughing, quietly, then louder. It wasn't a laugh he recognized. He limped out of the foundry as the rain began again, the molten glow behind him painting the smoke crimson. The mark burned through his glove now, visible even in the storm. He flexed his fingers and saw the glow reflected in every puddle, each reflection smiling back, not quite in sync with his movement. He could no longer tell which version of himself was real. As he crossed the bridge out of the district, he felt the city shifting, like something vast and ancient turning beneath its foundations. Windows rattled. The lamps flickered out one by one. Then the whisper came again, clearer, closer than ever. The throne waits, Kael. It was always meant for you. He stopped, staring at the distant palace, now a black silhouette behind smoke and storm. Kael's voice was hoarse when he answered. I didn't want this. The whisper chuckled. His own voice twisted back at him. No one ever does.